Yeah, to, spend back on the development. A lot of founders skip that step. They think, build it and they come. But yeah, I would say that's number one mistake that I see founders make. So you want to find people that already tried to solve that problem and failed, or maybe the solution that they come up with is not solving the problem in the way that they're happy with.
How do you determine what is core and what are the first things that need to be built?
Speed is definitely number one. Make sure that it's clear to the users what they need to do next. If they're on a page and they're confused where they need to click, or there is no, the help text that they can use to inform themselves. So if users are confused, they're not going to come back.
Hello, everyone. This is Jocelyn Hull. I'm your host today for BetterTech, and I'm super excited to welcome Lena Levine, CEO at Forcoda, who's going to talk to us about the smarter path to SaaS success. Welcome, Lena.
Great to be here.
It's great to see you. I'm super excited about this conversation. I spent a lot of time in the SaaS space, and it's a very big center of conversation right now in the data and AI world. To start with, though, tell me a little bit about what Forcoda is and how you came to be the CEO.
Yes. So Forcoda is a software development agency. We've been in business for 11 years. In fact, we turned 11 in July. So it's a big milestone. And my background is in technology. So I've been a techie kid growing up. My whole family are engineers. So I was meant to be an engineer and a software developer myself. And I have a degree in computer science. I have master's in computer science from Russian University. And in 2009, I moved to the US to pursue my dreams, which happened to be American dream. And I've also, in the US, I got the digital media degree. After college, I was working at Yahoo for a while. And at that point, I realized the corporate world was not for me. And I felt that I found working directly with business owners and the companies, I found that more rewarding, and helping entrepreneurs and businesses solve their problems with technology. That's what I felt passionate about. So in 2014, I started my own agency, Forcoda. And since then, we grew to 15 people on our team. We've been building various high complexity products, from websites, mobile applications, web applications. We do a lot of AI automation, AI agents as well right now. And over the years, we had a pleasure working with Fortune 500 companies, publicly traded companies, various technology startups, both on early stage and growth stage. And some of our prominent projects that we did were for MAT Bank, Oral-B, Shake Shack, Central Park Conservancy. And these days, we also we launched a venture arm of our agency called Forcoda Ventures. So that way we can continue supporting startups, helping them to become investment ready, helping them to secure funding, connect them with investors that are looking for the great technology companies, and for the companies that are growth stage, helping them to optimize their operations, make sure that they using their funds in the best way possible, make sure that all the development, growth, go-to-market processes are running smoothly. And we also support investors, VC firms in the technical capacity, in supporting the companies that they invest in.
Well, I'm super excited to talk to you about all of that. It's very close to my heart. My first startup was a startup studio doing software development and systems architecture for other startups primarily. And we also had a venture arm. So I love this whole topic, and I want to dig into it because I think there's a particular kind of point of view when you're working with founders that is different from the point of view you need to work with very large organizations. They're not mutually exclusive, but they are different. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. But first, a little bit more about you, because of course, that's what people want to know, is a bit more about your personal story. You say your whole family is technical.
Yes. I grew up as a kid. My dad had this big, colorful album for the car that he had that had all the schematics of engine and like all the different parts. So that was my childhood growing up, just looking at all these beautiful schematics of the car.
So early on, you were kind of interested in understanding how things work. And then what prompted you? I mean, to go ahead with the computer science degree? A lot of people are self-taught. Like, what was it about studying like serious computer science that attracted you?
So that's something I was passionate about as a kid. I started coding when I was 12. Microsoft Basic was the first language that I learned, and it just was natural path for me. I always felt interested in technology, solving different complex problems, and computer science just was my calling.
Now, it's interesting because a lot of technical founders have to kind of make an emotional switch to be business, to run a business is very different, right? And so tell me a little bit about, that I'd love to just kind of focus in just personally on like, okay, you decide that you're not really cut out for big company life. You're going to start your own thing. I just think this is a really important moment for founders to understand from other founders, because there's something something different about quitting your job to do a startup versus even being a first or second or third employee, right? So tell, like, emotionally, like, describe a little bit of that process where you're like, I'm out of here, and then like, how does that kind of get to your business on its feet?
Yeah. So after I left Yahoo, I got into consulting and freelance. So over time, I started getting more and more projects. So I started growing my team, adding more, developers, designers, project managers. So for me, it was organic process. To be honest, I never planned to be an entrepreneur, but it happened to me organically. When I look back and reflect of me moving to the US, being an immigrant and trying to figure out how to build my life in a new country, starting from scratch, having the vision, pursuing big dreams, the skills that I applied and developed moving to a different country, later on I applied the same skills to building my business. So and that was organic transition that happened to me, and it was just again happened to me naturally. But
I think that makes sense. Yeah. So for other entrepreneurs, there's always kind of a moment. So for you, I think this is actually really great to point out to other entrepreneurs who may be looking at this space, is that it doesn't have to be all in one gulp, right? You can slowly build your team, slowly build, and also balance out, because I'm sure you miss coding.
Sometimes, yes. These days I'm on the product strategy, helping to guide the creative direction on on our project. So, but I don't do much hands-on development anymore.
And it's hard. It's sort of the thing that got you here, right? Is the thing that you love doing. Sometimes you don't, or certainly in the early days when you're building a company, you may not get to do as much of it as you may like. But you mentioned product strategy, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit more, because you started coding early on, and I'll tell you, I've been in this business long enough to say that one of the cool things that's happening and has been happening is that more and more non-technical founders are kind of more invited into the conversation. You don't really have to be a coder anymore to start a company. That was already true before AI got here. And now it's really true. When you're working, from your perspective in particular, you're working with founders and maybe people who are building new things inside of an enterprise. What are some common mistakes that you see non-technical founders make when they're building SaaS platforms in particular?
Yeah, there are a lot of different mistakes that founders make on the earliest stages of their journey. And most of the founders that we work with are non-technical. So I've seen firsthand by working with our clients and also coaching startups. As a mentor, I've seen it all. So I would say in early stages, when companies build the products, a lot of times they focusing on features versus trying to understand their customer needs, and just building the products based on the founder gut feeling and the vision, versus going out there to talk to the customers, get the feedback, even trying to get sales before they build something. So for example, we had a client we've been working with called Collect, which is a CRM for social selling on social media. And we help them to conduct the customer and market research. So we went out, we conducted one-on-one interviews with their potential customers to understand exactly what their challenges are when they sell on social media, how they're currently solving them, right? What works, what doesn't work for them, what is their ideal solution looks like. And based on that feedback, we created the design, we created the high quality clickable prototype that our client later used to do sales webinars. And they use the prototype to present the solution, to talk about why people should use it. And during that sales webinar, they got a lot of people to swipe their credit card. So they I think sold $10,000 worth of licenses. And they use those money to, they use that as the idea validation step to make sure that what they build is actually needed by the customers to, spend back on the development.
Right.
So that's, a lot of founders skip that step. They think, build it and they come. But it's, I would say that's number one mistake that I see founders make.
Yeah, I think a lot of founders think that they understand how to do that process better than they think they've already done it. So let's kind of focus in on that because I actually think that's an interesting problem. For those of us who have to advise founders, and you kind of have to have a big ego to be a founder. You have to live in what's called like the unreality bubble a little bit and have maybe too much confidence. Those are the things you need to be a founder. Unfortunately, to build a great product, you have to be humble and you have to ask a lot of questions. It's almost a different persona. So how do you start that conversation? I'm in your office. I'm a founder. I'm like, my idea is the best thing since sliced bread. Then what? Like, how do you get somebody to sit down and do that process with you?
So you're right when you're saying founders have big egos. And I would say that's one of the biggest obstacles that holds many founders from reaching success. And one thing that I'm observing that founders, the further they go in the process, the more humble they become because they understand that they can, not write about everything, so that they need to bring experienced people on board to help them out, to guide them through the process. So when we talk to the founders that come to us with the ideas, we share our experience, we share those success stories and also the stories of founders that, we saw in the field that failed, and, the hope that founders will listen. So we can't twist their arm and say, you have to do it, right? Our job is to advise and provide the best recommendation based on our experience. But at the end of the day, founders are calling the shots, right? So, and the founders that understand the value of bringing experts on board and helping them from early stages, those are the founders that are usually successful. And the ones that, they try to figure out on their own, try to do everything themselves, don't go too far, or sometimes they come back later and say, listen, you were right, let's, help us to get to the next level.
There's so many tools available to founders and those who want to build products on their own. And increasingly, I feel like I talk to a lot of non-technical founders who tell me things like, oh, I'll just have AI do it, or I'll just do it with no or low code. But and I think a lot of our listeners probably know, enterprise software has requirements that may expand beyond what you can do in a low-code environment. How do you advise your clients to find that line of when it's not really a prototype or a single feature solution, but something that needs custom development?
Yeah. So AI is definitely great for quick prototyping. If you're building a solution that's somewhat templated, let's say you have a dashboard and maybe you're getting data from somewhere and you're displaying it on a dashboard for the users to see and interact with. That's something I would say for quick idea validation, no code AI solutions would be great. But later on, founders should expect to rebuild it, because what's happening with those AI builders is that you might be able, to do the wipe coding and create something just, very quickly, but those solutions are not scalable. And when it comes to expanding features or thinking about more complex requirements when it comes to, security, speed, and scalability of the application, those AI builders do not perform so well. So, and there are other challenges with those solutions. Like, for example, if you were to build a mobile app using the no-code solution, you might have a hard time publishing it on the App Store because it's not a straightforward process, right? So at the end of the day, if you're planning to build a production quality application, that's when you want to build it right from the beginning, right? Set the foundation to make sure that you accounted for different, parameters, make sure, again, it's secure, scalable, and fast. And yeah, when it comes to enterprise solutions, that's when you definitely want to go customer out and make sure that you have all the best practices in place.
Unfortunately, that's the case. I've been in enterprise a long time, and it's about distribution and adoption. And so if you are going to use low code tools, it is important to ask those questions early on. Like, who's going to be consuming this? Does it have to get posted to some place that has standards? So I think that's a useful commentary. I like what you're saying too, because it is great for prototyping, which just makes hiring an organization like you more cost effective because you can express yourself better.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
How are your internal to your organization? Are you using any AI tools, and can you share how that's going?
Yeah, we use some AI tools like Cursor to, speed up some of the development processes, but not on a larger scale where we go and we build the whole application. But for example, if developer can save time to generate some component in React, let's say they want to generate 3-column table with images and text below it, that's something that like those like AI development tools can be great help that can save some time. But when it comes to architecture decisions, setting up the projects, that all, we do it manually. We write the code to make sure, again, that we're not missing something crucial that later will impact product quality.
Okay, great. So basically, you're using it the same as most software development firms are using it. In some ways, our discussion has taken the shape of new product creation. So I'm going to keep going with that. The smarter path to SaaS success, right, is like engaging these founders early and making sure that they value the upfront process, right, is what you're saying. Make sure that they're looking at customer problems. Then you talked a little bit about validation and early traction real quick, because in this form of a success story from one of your customers. What other things in terms of validating ideas and early traction have you seen your customers do that can really work?
The best way to validate the idea is to get sales before you even write the single line of code, and you can achieve it. So we do have a framework that we follow. We call it 0 to 1 million, that follows a particular sequence of steps to make sure that by the time you reach the last step, you're confident that you're building something that your customers want. So we typically start with customer research and validation, right? So that's what I was mentioning. You can go and talk one-on-one to your customers, ask them about their challenges day to day, how they do things.
The interesting thing on that, I talk to so many founders who have big ideas that go into like highly regulated organizations, big companies, banks. How do you find those people and get them to talk to you? And out of curiosity, you may have some different approaches.
Yeah, so that's where founders need to be creative and persistent, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to reach the right people. The best tools that we've seen work for reaching the people is, first, you can tap in your network, right? So if you're already working in that space, so hopefully you know people in your maybe in your organization, in your network that can give you 30 minutes of their time to provide you with the feedback. Then going to events, networking, going to the industry events, conferences is a great way to meet people face to face. Also, LinkedIn is an amazing tool. So what we've done, for some of our clients, we've set up outreach automations to send out requests to people on a LinkedIn asking. It could be pretty straightforward, saying, "Hello, my name, is so and so. I'm building a solution in your space. I'd love to ask you for the feedback on the product. I'm not going to sell you on anything, right?" And if you connect with people, you can ask them to,
I do talk to a lot of founders. I think people are a little bit more worried about non-response on this than they should be. A lot of people are very willing to share their feedback, especially if you have a specific question.
Absolutely.
So how do you help founders figure out what to ask?
That's a great question. So typically you want to understand 5 things with the customers. You want to understand whether they have a problem, because if they don't have a problem, then they're not going to buy your solution, right?
A bad enough problem. A bad enough
problem.
Yeah.
Yes. It has to be, a very painful problem to make sure that they're willing to solve it. Because, if their house is on fire, but you're selling them some, lawn maintenance solution, they're not going to be talking to you.
This is actually where I fall down. Like, don't outsmart yourself. It could like sort of intellectually be a problem, but if the customer is not really feeling the pain, unfortunately, it's not going to fly. So, okay. So that's the 1 of 5.
One of five, yes. So you want to find people that already tried to solve that problem and failed, or maybe the solution that they come up with is not solving that problem in the way that they're happy with. That will tell you that those people are already in that solution finding buyer mindset. So that way they will be ideal first customer for you. So then you want to make sure that those people have money to spend on your solution and desire to buy the solution, right? So if if you get yes to all of those questions, or if you answer yes, then you have the ideal person, customer that can be early adopter of your product. And as you keep them in your orbit, as you develop the product, later on when you have a prototype, when the product goes live, they will become your first testers and ideally first customers.
I love that you include who's doing this now as part of your validation, because I think that's such a great question to ask and not be afraid of the answer. Because, well, my 2 cents is if there's no competitors, there may not be a business there. But let me ask you this. How do you advise? I've talked to, like, I suffer from this, and I've seen other founders where you might have a really pretty established player out there. How do you validate when you see a more established player? What would you recommend to that founder?
Yeah, yeah, I would advise founders not get discouraged when they see competitors in their space. You can actually learn a lot from companies that are already solving the problem. What you can do, you can go on different review websites. You can go on Reddit and see what people share about the experience with these particular companies and learn from the feedback. So look at the 3, 2, and 1 star reviews. So that's where you're going to find the best feedback, people complaining about things that they're not happy with. And then you can implement those improvements in your product, and you can position yourself against the competitors. I've seen it many times, and you probably did too, when you go on Google and you search for something particular platform, and then you have ads at the top saying, hey, we're faster than this product, or we're cheaper. So that can inform you how to position yourselves, and position against the competitors could be one of the ways to approach it.
Can't emphasize this enough, right? There's just whatever people are saying a lot of times is not quite right about their own company. They're puffing it up a bit. And I like what you're saying too, is to do your research and maybe use that product for a real scenario, if at all possible, because I think that's such an eye opener sometimes about missed opportunities. It is a tried and true. You don't have to stop doing an idea just because there's competition. There's often gaps that you can take advantage of. So I do want to, I'm glad we had a chance to emphasize that because people get a little too intimidated. All right. So what else? Anything else I should ask about validation and early traction?
So let's see. So we talked about customer competitor analysis, creating a prototype, right? So using the data that you're getting from your research to make informed decisions about what features to include in your prototype or first version of the product. Because because what you think is important to people might not be important to your customers.
Let's talk about product design, because I have a particular point of view of this, and I want to hear what you have to say about product design. Because, well, first of all, I'll ask you, what do you think when you kick off a product design? What is your process for doing that? Is it a long, like a one-day meeting, or like how do you start product design from zero? So assuming you validated, you've got your ducks in a row, when like we're definitely going to build this thing. How do you see the core like milestones and steps of product design?
Yeah, so we definitely want to keep founder, feedback and, thoughts in mind and their preferences in mind when it comes to, let's say, look and feel and, how they want to approach this product. But we also then go out and we do the research if there are products, again, if there are competitors in the space, if there are maybe products in the adjacent space that have similar features that we're trying to implement. We go out there, we do the research, we, create essentially the mood board with different references from different products that we can learn from. And then based on that reference, we can start creating the design of the features. So, and then the best way to do it is not try to design everything at once and let's say spend 3 months designing every single page, go back to the customer and present them, or go back to the founder or customers. The best way to approach it is to make that process very iterative. So do it step by step. Say, focus on one page, design it, get feedback from the founder, show it to their potential customers, get feedback, use that feedback to improve things, and then, go it little by little with the rest of the pages, with the rest of the features to make sure that at the end of the day, when the design is complete, it aligns with customer expectations. So that way, the quality of the product when you build it is the best possible.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. So it sounds like you're really starting with that. And maybe you're mostly working with consumer-facing products, but you're really starting with that user experience before you're getting into deep architecture and the underlying technology. Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting. And then in that process, so I like that, and I really like what you're saying about not building everything. However, it's very difficult to get some founders to come along with you on that. How do you determine what is core and what are the first things that need to be built?
So yeah, that's a good question. Again, part of that information comes from the customer feedback. Part of that comes from our experience in the industry for over decade in the industry. And I would say typically you want to focus on maybe like top 3, maybe 5 features that you want to design. Because again, at the end of the day, if you trying to build everything at once, first, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be expensive. So, and as founders, the rule of thumb, you want to be testing the ideas very quickly. So if we wait in, a year to complete the whole application before it goes into the hands of the customers for them to test it out, you might get outcompeted by competitors that move in faster than you. Industry can change, technology can change. So if you focus on small blocks of features that you deliver in every few weeks, you'll see much better results.
Yeah, so the iterative process, you've mentioned that a little bit in this. As I said, we're just working through the design like we did validating, early traction, but product design and development strategy is kind of what we're talking about right now. And in terms of iteration, it's been said that you should share your product when it's actually physically embarrassing to you. Do you agree with that or not?
Yes and no. Yes and no. If you follow in this iterative process, the quality of product can be pretty high quality. So especially if you implement a high quality design, releasing it in the hands of the customers, there might be little maybe like bugs here and there, but the overall product needs to be functional, because if it's not functional, people are not gonna use it, right?
Yeah.
So, but if it's like little things, maybe something is misaligned, I would say, yeah, that's something that can be refined later. And again, before we go into software development, the goal is to refine the product visuals and design and get the feedback during the design and prototype phase. So that way it's as polished as it can be.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think that the iterative process is particularly interesting in the SaaS space, and particularly interesting in the, I guess, enterprise, but also you have your customer. Your customer is the founder, right? Or the person who's engaged you to build this thing. I think that people really like to see something with a little bit more fit and finish. I don't necessarily agree with that as a technologist, but I do think founders should think about giving people something they can look at that is familiar. Especially in the AI world, I feel like a lot of people show me products that are just like a box on a web page, and it's not enough for people to kind of get behind your idea. So I really like that focus on the UX and being, iterating on the core features, but also maybe with a little bit more fit and finish than I think we typically talk about in Silicon Valley, right? Especially for corporate buyers.
It needs to make sense to the users, because if they sign in and they're confused, they don't know how to use the application, they're going to drop off. So it should be clear to them, how they use it, what the next step is. Ideally, if you can provide some sort of value the first, few minutes as they get onboarded into the application, the chances that they're going to continue using it and they will be more satisfied, you'll get loyal customers much faster.
Yeah. And so the other flip side of this is then you're able to do your architecture a little bit better
Yeah.
sometimes when you have this built out more. What do you think are the most sort of surprising things for non-technical founders that they have to think about very early when it comes to architecture and scale?
So are we talking about the technical side
Technical
or?
side. Like SaaS
Mhm.
is, I mean, because of SaaS, I think it's such an
Mhm.
interesting place because that can get expensive quickly.
Oh yeah.
Right? It can get super expensive. And then if you do want to sell to corporate, there's things you need to think about that seem very boring but are important.
Selling directly to B2B, when you sell to B2B customers that are not corporate versus corporate, it's two different worlds, because on the corporate side, you're dealing with so many regulations, especially if it's a healthcare, financial space. So with regulations, compliance, it just like separate, it's separate world that can take you weeks or months to get in compliance with. If you're selling to B2C or B2B customers directly, it's a little bit faster. But when it comes to architecture, that's one of the areas that I would say it's worth investing money and bringing the technical expert on board, CTO, architect level that can help you outline the architecture of your platform. What servers are you using, how do you, where you're storing backend, where you're storing front end, how you, delivering the features, right? Where you're storing the code in which code repository, because those things can impact your, first of all, cost of the server. We've seen people that use, let's say, AWS, but it's not set up correctly. They don't even know. They set it up and they think that's what AWS charges. But if you set it up correct way, your monthly bill can be, let's say, $15 versus $300.
You are so right. I hope everyone hears that because that is a common pitfall and there are tricks to set up that will help you. And it's like, it's 15 to 3, like it's a huge difference. I'm glad you guys focus on both the UI as well as some of these strategic questions that I think traditionally, certainly before AI came into the focus, there's really been this focus of just throw anything out there. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but you need to understand if there's a reworking or you have to blow it up and rebuild it, which does happen. But you want to kind of know that ahead of time.
And one thing I want to add is that when it comes to setting up the architecture of the platform, you also want to think in the future where your application is going to be, let's say in 2-5 years, how many customers you're potentially going to have, because the foundation of the platform needs to be able to scale as your customer base grows. And also we've seen founders that overbuild their architecture. They may be building enterprise level architecture because that's maybe the technical person, that's what they know, that's how they build it, right? But that's when you run into those huge like infrastructure bills that you should not be paying. So when you're setting up the project, think of it as building the house, right? So if you being single family home, the foundation will be much smaller versus if you're building the multi-story condo building. But at the same time, that if in a few years you think that your one single family home is going to turn into the multi-story condo building, you need to be able to scale it without scratching everything.
And sometimes it's not possible. That's okay, but you have to think about it ahead of time. I'm curious. So I've a couple quick questions in this space because it's actually so fascinating. MVP. A lot of people talk about the MVP, but I've sort of seen a lot of variation in different kinds of MVPs. Is that something that you use in your practice? And if so, how do you define it?
When the founders come to us with an idea, that's what we help them to create the minimal viable product. So, and yeah, you're right. It can be anything from just having the calculations in Excel file to actually polished, refined product, depending again who your customers are and what you're trying to validate. What is your goal? Are you trying to get a feedback that your calculations may be correct? Then, maybe Excel spreadsheet with some formulas would be the way to do it, because you want to make sure that the calculations are correct. But if the only way to get the feedback from the customer, the actionable feedback to build out the system, right? That's where you need to go and create the product that's functional. So for example, we had we have a healthcare client where we built this platform to create custom patient onboarding process where providers can go in, create a custom, they had this like drag and drop form builder that we created for them. So that way providers can create custom forms, create patient journey before they come for the visit, the day of the visit, and after the visit. So there were various automations, notifications, messaging systems. So for example, with this particular client, we couldn't deliver just one component. We couldn't just deliver a form builder because for them to get the full experience of their customers, they need to have the patient portal, provider portal, like some, automations, messaging, email notifications in order to test that whole experience. So I would say it's a case by case discussion how complex MVP should be.
Good. I like that. And it seems like you do some more consumer facing things. I have not done that in many years. What do and it's just from a UI or from what do consumers demand? What has to be true?
Simple products that solve their problems.
I just mean in terms of UI, UX, what have you seen? For instance, people expect everything to load immediately. People want, like from a design perspective and product design perspective, what do consumers want out of their SaaS applications, or what are non-negotiables for consumers?
Speed is definitely number one. Make sure that it's clear to the users what they need to do next. So if they're on a page and they're confused where they need to click, or there is no, the help text that they can use to inform themselves. So if users are confused, they're not going to come back. You're going to lose them. So having the clear, as I would say, as simple as minimalistic as you can create the user interface, because sometimes you have a lot of data on the screen. And if that amount of data is overwhelming to users, you want to think about the way how you can present the data so it's easy to digest, easy to maybe give users an options to hide certain things if they don't need to see everything, or give them ability to see everything that if that's what they prefer. So giving users flexibility as well to control the view of their page, gives users feeling of control, so that they're not stuck in the particular experience that maybe doesn't fit their processes
or that their expectations were. I think that's such a great point out. The thing too is like they won't come back. The stakes are very high. I think now they just don't. People have very high, maybe unrealistically high expectations for the technology they're working with. So it is really important, which is again kind of going back to your validation and early traction plan. Is so important to think that through in depth, even though it may seem tedious before you write a line of code, right? Well, we moving across, like, okay, we've got our validation, we did our product design, we did our development, we're building it out. A lot of founders struggle with the last most important mile, which is go to market. And as an investor, as well as an advisor, what do you see as the biggest mistake, or an example of a company that you've worked with who really figured it out? So like, let's start with like what not to do and go to market.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite topics, and that's one of the biggest pain points that founders have when it comes to sales.
Actually, let's back up for a second. What is go to market in your mind? Like, maybe not everybody knows.
So go to market is the process of creating the strategy, how you're going to find the customers and selling to those customers, getting sales.
Okay, good.
So yeah.
Okay. Not everybody knows what it is. We sort of throw that around a lot. And people say they do it. And I'm always like, oh, well, we should make sure we say what it means. So now there's a lot of mistakes you can make and go to market. But what is kind of just a couple big ones?
So the number one mistake that I see founders make is that they start selling too late they wait too long. Usually I see founders start selling after the product is ready. And it can take 6 to 12 months to build your product, depending on how big it is. So all the time, if you not start building your wait list, reaching out to potential customers, building those relationships, drumming up the excitement, educating audience about your product, you're losing those 6 to 12 months. So when the product goes live, you're essentially starting from zero. And the right way to do it is start building all that, strategy, building your customer wait list, getting them excited, getting them warmed up, building the relationship with your customers as soon as possible. So that way, when your product is live, now you have thousands of people that cannot wait to try your product. So you're not launching into the void, but you already have a dedicated audience that understands what you do and can't wait to try your product.
This is so nerve-wracking for founders, particularly technical founders who are often very earnest and they want to have something to point to. And do you have any examples in your own portfolio of companies who have done this particularly well?
So again, the Collect is one of the examples, right? So they use the prototype to get sales and drum up that engagement. So we had.
Can I pause you for a second? Or do you believe a working prototype, or really just kind of visuals?
It's visual. It just was. It was done in Figma. It was just design that had clickable elements that looked and felt like a completed product. For uneducated consumer, it looked like a finished product, but it was just designs connected together that you can click through and.
I think it's okay, right? You can tell people, hey, this is just a clickable design. I think it's very influential. You don't have to, I think a lot of founders wring their hands, like, oh, is this like, and I think it's perfectly fine to say like, yeah, we're building it, right? And people will still get on board.
Absolutely. So, and then another client that we work with, SelectFi. So it's a startup in the automotive space. So we created, so we took them through our process, right, with the customer validation, prototyping, MVP development. So they use the prototype again to start getting conversations with dealerships, start building the establishing partnerships, getting interest from potential customers while we were building an MVP. So by the time the MVP was completed, they already had a few dealerships that wanted to test out the product, and they started getting traction, got even more feedback, right, from the customers, and they raised $4.5 million seed round. They hired 17 people within 2 years, so that company on the on a trajectory to be very successful.
Any other strategies I haven't asked about in terms of selling early?
Let me see. I think we covered it, most of it. I would say also creating sales funnels. So sales funnel is the set of steps that users can go through to either get onto your email list or maybe a completed purchase. So it can consist of the landing page that talks about your product. Let's say people go to your website, maybe there is some sort of freebie, free guide or something, some value that they can receive in exchange for their email. And then as they get into your email subscriber list, you can continue engaging them through sending them email that maybe shares some educational advice, again, talks about your product. And you can guide those people to a sales webinar as well. So that's where you can present the prototype, ask for a sale, and to further validate the idea. And then later on, as your product goes live, you can use that setup to guide people to sign up for the paid version of your product.
Yeah, I like that. It's a common, I think a lot of founders need to think about the funnel, and we call it a funnel because, right. I was going to think about friends. There's like people who don't know you. Those are like the prospects. They're way out there. That's the top of the funnel, all the people. And then there's the people who met you once. And then there's the people you've talked to a few times, right? And it kind of gets closer and closer to the inner circle. That I think is something that, is a concept that really helps, because a lot of people are not going to react to you the first time. They're not going to, I think there's a lot of, things that don't work there that ultimately will work, but you have to have patience.
Yeah. People need to hear about you at least 7 times before they buy.
Is that right? I haven't heard that before. But that sounds right. So it's okay if people don't open your email or respond. You have to keep going. They're not your friends yet, but they will be.
You just have to be persistent.
They don't know it yet, but they're going to be your friend. Yeah. So thinking through all of these items, right? We've gone through all of the steps here. And please, add in if I forgot to ask about something of like guiding these non-technical founders, you're validating early ideas to early traction, design, development strategy, and then you build it, and then you get people to buy it, which of course is the unforgettable last step that, right? If they don't buy it, then you got to do something else. All through this, you're working closely with founders, and there's a lot of different types of founders, different types of advice you could give. But if you had to boil it down, what are like 1 or 2 things you would tell founders right now to be successful?
Yeah, I would say think of your company as a bunch of different systems that you need to scale. At the end of the day, founders don't need to be coders or product people, but what they need to focus on to build a successful company is look at it from the perspective of different scalable processes, because
Mm-hmm.
that's it. You might start as a solo founder, but later on you will start bringing people. And if your processes are a mess, if you don't, if you don't have a concrete steps, how you're going to be finding customers, how you're going to be selling, how you will be, finding partners, or maybe like releasing new features. So then that's where it's going to start crumble, or it's just going to become a big mess. So as the founder, your number one responsibility is to have that vision and identify the steps to reach those different goals, to make sure that as you're bringing people on your team, now you have scalable processes that everyone can follow. So that way your company can run on autopilot, even if you're not there every day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like that. I like that a lot. That's helpful for founders listening or people considering becoming founders, right? It's a long haul. And I like what you're saying in terms of not everything has to be perfect, but you have to have a framework in mind, I think is what you're saying. And that's really what your organization is providing. As a founder yourself, you're in a specialized kind of business. You're not necessarily in a full-on product business because you're doing services, but as a founder yourself, what's like the one surprising thing that you've learned yourself as a founder?
Yeah, I would say bring in the right people on your team, because at the end of the day, as a founder, you cannot do everything yourself. It's impossible to learn everything yourself. So focusing on identifying the right talent and having the right people in the right seats in your team will make a huge difference to your company growth. For example, last year, we went and we implemented US framework within our company, so which stands for Entrepreneur Operating System.
Mm-hmm.
Which help identifies a few different areas that within your organization, the company values, processes, the team structure, the goals. So it gives you the whole framework how to run business effectively. And one of those things was to creating identifying the different seats that you have in your company and the roles and the people that fill in those roles. And we went through a bit of the restructuring process, which helped to streamline the operations and identify all the right team members that we need that maybe we didn't have internally. And that was a game changer in making sure that everything is running smoothly. So I don't have.
It's so hard to do that. It's so hard to take time to do that. It's hard. I just cannot emphasize this enough. It feels like the house is on fire and you need to attend to so many things.
Yeah, it took us 6 months to go through the whole.
But it's super important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, you ready to do some rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right. What's one quality that separates good from great leaders?
I would say focusing on big picture and not being stuck on the small details.
Okay. What's one industry you think AI is going to completely transform?
Healthcare.
What's a habit of yours that makes you operate at your best professionally?
So every Sunday I sit down and I review the tasks and goal for the next week. So that way I have a clarity of what's coming up, and so that way I'm prepared to take on the week.
What's the most underrated leadership quality in your opinion?
I would say patience. Patience to see the results, patience with people on your team, and patience with yourself.
Who's a tech leader that you look up to or admire? Doesn't have to be current.
Steve Jobs.
I hear that a lot. Yeah. And then just for yourself, do you have an app or productivity tool that's your secret weapon that you don't want to share, but will share with me?
So two things: my calendar, because I live by my calendar, and also various AI automation tools like make.com or NA10. So I create different automations to automate different mundane tasks that I need to do and free up my time.
That's great. And then if you don't have to have one, but if you have a personal motto or a leadership philosophy that you can encapsulate in just like a quick motto?
My motto is my personal one is ad astra, which is the Latin phrase. The full phrase is ad astra per aspera, which means to the stars through obstacles. But I just keep it to ad astra, to the stars, because I don't know obstacles.
I like that. The obstacles did not even make it into your motto.
Stars.
Well, it's been really a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for coming on the show today, and really look forward to hearing about more of your customer successes going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.